So recently I decided to play through Sonic Adventure due to watching the magnum opus of the entire film industry, Sonic 3.
Welcome to the big reveal. I hope you can deal with all this riz.
I always enjoyed this game. In fact, I'll pretty much enjoy any early 3D Sega game that has that super saturated tropical feel for it. But it got me thinking, how many of these games do I just play for the vibes over the gameplay? Before I start, I just want to make it clear that these games are all either highly regarded or were at the time. And I'm also really not trying to say these games are bad at all, just because the art direction might carry them a little bit. Graphics, music, environments, and overall art direction is integral to a lot of great games. For example, I don't think many people would play Animal Crossing if they replaced all the cute animal designs, bright cartoon environments, and sound design with realistic graphics that sucked all the charm out of it. It's why none of the Minecraft clones ever took off as well. It's a simplistic design that people gravitated towards. You can't just recapture lightning in a bottle like that. And all of these games on the list are games that I've played through and absolutely loved, and at the end of the day, a good experience is a good experience. Katamari Damacy is one of my favorite games of all time. The visuals are so unique in this game, purposely low poly and minimalist, and not relying on cel shading or filters to make up for it. It's just a raw, simplistic design, but something about it really attracts my eyes. Maybe it's the amount of detail in each individual object, maybe it's the cutesy design of everything, or maybe it's the really awesome yet wild character design of the prince and his cousins. The sound design is amazing, having a wide range of reactions and sound effects for each individual pedestrian, animal, and anything else. And the soundtrack is incredible. Every track is a weird yet funky banger. It keeps an upbeat vibe and aesthetic, a surprising amount of coherency considering everything from fairly experimental techno to jazz is used in this game. And if you haven't listened to the main theme, do yourself a favor, go listen to it now and tell me it's not the best video game opening theme ever. With all this going for it, gameplay wise, if you strip away all the charm, this game is fairly bare bones. This is a short game, it's only 5 hours long if you're casually running through it, but it can get a bit repetitive. The controls are fairly tanky and a bit unresponsive at times, and sometimes you can straight up get stuck somewhere so easily. At the end of the day, it's a fairly simple concept. Roll up a ball and then make it bigger by rolling up bigger items. I'm not saying simple concepts are bad, I just think that simple gameplay without charm doesn't normally work, and if it didn't have this amazing art direction, I probably would have never played it. Sonic Adventure 1 is the top on my list for Sonic games, even though I know damn well this thing has aged like milk. And yet, something always allures me to revisit it every so often. At the time of release, and from what I've heard of, people agree that this game was mostly better on the Dreamcast. Reviews at the time were solid, and it sold well, yet this game struggles in almost every aspect. The controls feel clunky, like you're constantly stepping on shards of invisible wall. The cutscenes may as well have not been animated to save us the horror of whatever the hell this is.
What? Tails? Watch out! You're gonna crash! Ah!
And some of the different character storylines are straight up boring and tedious.
Serious, dude! Oh, please, just fucking take the more! Just take it! Just say hit. Why? This is as hard to, it's as hard to get this hit as like a top 40 radio hit.
But this game has so much charm in my opinion, it entirely makes up for it. Something about early 3D Sega games that have a tropical beach feel really win me over, and I know a lot of people feel like this. This game in particular has a very iconic first level. For no reason in particular, it's just a cool vibe. It's been brought back in so many ways, and Emerald Coast is just so nice to look at. I've seen the Chow Gardens being posted in many Y2K and Fruitigo Aero Instagram pages, and the cover art has that early 2000s Cartoon Network charm going for it. This game feels very relevant at its time in pop culture, much like Jet Set Radio and other Sega classics, and even if you didn't play it as a child, the nostalgia is so plain to see you can't help but get enveloped in these environments. The music for this game is a mix of high-energy rock, metal, ska, funk, hip-hop, and trance. And there's many more genres thrown into the mix, but this is what most people remember it for. The cheesy yet motivating lyrics playing in the backing track of Open Your Heart is just so perfect and really complements the final Chaos battle. I also love the strange mix of rock and acid synths when you are completing the other Chaos battles. It genuinely creates tension. And when you're done with a mission, welcome to Station Square plays, which is a perfect combination of funk and melodic rock that creates a fun calm before the storm theme. All of this combined makes for a really buggy yet compelling game. To continue on the tropical coastal vibe, we have Super Mario Sunshine, the game that Nintendo kinda tried to sweep under the rug until somewhat recently. This game is a whole lot less buggy than Sonic Adventure, and actually has some fun, satisfying gameplay, but when I finished this game in 2020, I didn't have a nostalgic bias when playing it. Something about this game has so much charm. I felt nostalgia even though it wasn't warranted. Something about Isle Delfino as a setting, how nice all the water looked, the more intimate level selection compared to Super Mario 64 and Galaxy, and the islander and enemy designs feel great. And not to mention the music, inspired by Afro-Brazilian rhythms with tropical instrumentation like samba, calypso, and tropicalia, is a nice complementing sound that stands out from every other mainline Mario game. Isle Delfino feels like a real lived-in place, rather than a bunch of randomly placed blocks and enemies throughout a skybox. There's a sense of community, secrets to uncover, and all round just a place that I want to live in, much like some other Nintendo islands. But that being said, being non-biased when playing through the game, I couldn't help but notice how unfinished it felt. The story is pretty much fully developed by the early stages of the game and doesn't develop further, leaving you hanging until the end of the game about 2 hours in. The shine system isn't very vast and forces you to go back to levels towards the end of the game and repeat missions that you've already done 12 times. And I can't exactly put my finger on it, but some of these missions really do feel like a bit more of an afterthought rather than something the developers fleshed out for fun. With all that said, I really enjoyed this game despite all its shortcomings, and it really has the best vibes of the whole series in my opinion. Mirror's Edge Catalyst is the most polished game on this list. It's got tight mechanics, jaw-dropping graphics at times, and is bordering on greatness but just missing the mark and falling into a AAA mediocrity. It really is an incredible game in a lot of ways, but it falls flat due to what I can only assume would be time constraints. A lot of people wanted the next Mirror's Edge to be open world. I was skeptical, but it really does work when the level design allows for it. What I mean by this is when you are between missions or doing side tasks and making a jump based on a split decision, it can be so satisfying. But when you are playing through a lot of the main missions, they have areas that are a lot more linear and therefore serve less of a purpose and can feel boring when revisited. And then there's the other frustrating aspects of this game. Certain collectibles can literally slow the game to a halt and do it while you're trying to complete another mission. This really ruins the pace for a game that's based on momentum. There's a terrible skill tree system that was just thrown into the game for the sake of it without any real thought. Like, you seriously have to unlock the ability to roll upon impact, which is something that was default with the previous game. The story gives you nothing to care for, throwing you into a new world with new characters that never develop over time, and just overall really bland and predictable. This is not to say that the original had a great story, and as a matter of fact, excelled into a cult classic due to none of these traits. The reason is because this game had an amazing vibe, exploring simplistic color palettes painted into a sterile Japanese-inspired city, having incredible sound design and depth in its core gameplay and movement. The fact that you can always see Faith's body no matter where you are looking really adds to the immersion and was miles ahead of games at the time. Catalyst brings this into a whole nother level, improving the flow and the speed of certain areas that did feel a bit clunky, like climbing poles and ladders. And the vibe of Glass City this time around in Catalyst is unmatched. It feels like an open world version of what the 80s and 90s thought the future would look like, perfectly encapsulating aesthetics like Fruitigo Aero, and combining this with a reactive soundtrack that was composed by Solar Flares, you get an amazing mood that just feels euphoric when you get into a flow. I've enjoyed this game more after finishing the main storyline, and sometimes I'll just play it and put an album on, grab some collectibles, beat time trials, and vibe out. That's it for my list for now, but let me know if you have any games that you play more for the vibes than the gameplay in the comments. I'll also leave a link to my music in the description, so if you made it this far and you want to support me in a small way, feel free to have a listen. Who knows, maybe if you're a fan of electronic music, there might be something worth your while. Anyways, thanks for watching.